This is Rowan Tree, and it is really somewhere special because it started out of love and friendship. I met Kate first because we were an activist together. She's in Together We Will. I was in Network Nova. We met at a bar. But I was so impressed with this young woman. She gave me just so much hope. And then I met her best friend, Amy, who's here. I don't know where are you at, Amy? Over there, yes, Amy Italian Diagnano. Yes, good enough. And they started this co-working space, so they went off on this adventure, and this is a woman's co-working space with men, and anybody is welcome. And please talk to them later if you're interested in partnering with them and being part of this wonderful space. It's awesome, and they are sponsoring the summit. They're partners. We thank them tonight. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you. Oh, Jenny Kitchen's here all the way from rural Virginia, too. Badass. Looking right at you. Love you. So we do have so much going on that as activists, it's hard to focus. And that's the purpose of the chaos, right? We have the school board people today. We have teachers that are with us because we are really concerned about education. So we have reproductive rights. It's like coming from everywhere. Gun violence. So we only have to stay focused. It's not, the issues are important, but it's focused on getting out the vote and organizing around all these issues. We get really distracted. It's really overwhelming. So we're glad you're here tonight. I won't go off on my soapbox.
You want to invite people to come in?
Come on in, because we're going to start the program at 7:30, or we can just roll with it if you want. I want to introduce the mayor of Herndon, who's going to welcome you here, Mayor Sheila Olem, and she's going to have some remarks, and then we will think about either we'll take a little break and come back, or we can start our program. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. We're glad to see all of you here at Rowan Tree, one of our booming businesses here in the town of Herndon. Thank you very much for doing so well. And I am Sheila Olem on the Herndon Town Council. And my colleague, Ms. Signe Friedrichs, is right over there. We've been on the council for a while together. And we just want to welcome you to our community. And after you get done here, cruise around and you'll hear the music downtown Herndon. Friday Night Live is going on. And I'll be down there working. So if you need an ID, come see the lady with the flamingos. I'd be happy to ID you with your license. Also, Irene Chin's, our delegate, said she regrets she couldn't be here, but because of the issues, she decided to be at a vigil this evening. I am the former chairman of the Virginia, the Women's Democratic Caucus for Virginia. I served on that for several years, and then it was just too much with being on the town council. We don't really work on the issues that are at hand at the moment, but I did give out a pride recognition last night to our local Dulles Triangle. So Herndon has long been an inclusive, supportive community. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to you.
So I'm thinking I was going to take a break and then come back at 7:30. Should we just roll with it? And then we can hang around and have some good times. Okay. That sounds like a plan. So I wanted to set up this speaker. Let me just set the rules of the road in the room. You know me. Food is over there in the corner, and intern Kara May is back there. Thank you, intern Kara, from the Friday Power Lunch. She's been great. And Mary Bartleson, help with the food. Thank you. I couldn't do it without you, Mary. So we're going to go forth with our program. If you want to talk, I love it. Go outside by the Badass Boutique and shop and talk. That way we can hear, and it's okay to talk. It's okay to mingle. We haven't seen each other. I welcome that. But just go outside and do it that way, and here we can really kind of concentrate. We really wanted to center ourselves tonight, and I know no one better that centers us than Dorri C. Scott. She is a poet, an author, CEO, wise woman. She's just a wonderful person to know. She knows the pulse of what's going on. She just wrote a book, and we'll learn about that third book. But she's going to really center the conversation tonight and help us really lean into what we need to do. And then we'll start our panel with Holly Heizer.
Thank you. Thank you. So when I wear white, I come to fight. When I wear white, I come to fight. Come on with me. When I wear white, I come to fight. When I wear white, I come to fight. That stems back to 1913 when the women marched. Okay, they wore white. Okay, I was visiting with my mother in New York City. I was wearing red. I said, no. I heard the news this morning. When I wear white, I come to fight. When I wear white, I come to fight. We march in white. We speak in white. We wear those beautiful dresses in white because we are pure. We tell truth. We are clean. We are men and women making a difference. When we wear white, we come to fight. So I want you to think about that as we look at what's happening in this country. And like most of you, I started crying today. Because I thought about 50 years, I'm 65 years old. I'm old enough to be a grandmother. I don't look it, but I am. I'm just saying. But my point is simply this. The world has changed for our daughters. The world has changed for us as grandmothers, for our grandchildren, for our children. We must put on our white and get ready to fight. Will you join me? Yes. Will you join me? Yes. All right. So I thought about something that I wrote, and I recently wrote a new choreo poem, and I was going to share that with you. Kitchen Talk is about women gathering, men coming together. And then I had the news for today. You're mostly used to hearing me say, can I get a witness? 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 Come on with me. Come on, work with me. Can I get a witness? Can I get a witness? That's what we need. We need some witnesses. We need some witnesses. I changed my story because of what's happening today. So in case you missed the memo, didn't get the message, were you under a rock somewhere? Chose to ignore breaking news? Flash date, update, retake. Woman hear me roar. Woman hear me roar. And men, listen up. Story changed today. History is retold, reshaped, repeated, regroup. It's time. Our rights, our reproductive rights. Her family, her funds, her faith, her decision. Can I get a witness? Can I get a witness? It's her decision about her body. You see, it's her life, her own story. Her life has changed. His life changed too. Can I get a witness? I'm saying that all to say, though the court ruled, we must retool. We must go back to school. And all those who dared and dreamed that today would never happen, can I get a witness? Can I get a witness? Roe v. Wade, some 50 years ago, gave way to truth their way. It's our turn, ladies. It's our turn, gentlemen. What's left to do is our work. Yes, Virginia says it's safe, but others do not. Everywhere, they are our sisters. Everywhere, they are our brothers. Can I get a witness? Can I get a witness? Flash news update, retake. Women hear me roar. Men, listen up. Story changed today. History untold, reshaped, repeated, regrouped. Not a happy ending, but this is not the end yet. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Can I get a witness? Thank you. And yes, she does have a new book up, Kitchen Talk. Kitchen Talk. Because that's what we do in the kitchen. We were in the kitchen before preparing all that great food in there. So I want to hand over the next section to Holly Hazard, who is the founder of For Public Education. I also want to acknowledge that we have other board members here. Carl Furch. Is it Providence? And then we have a candidate, Makia Little, that's running over. And also, Margie Cohen. My eye went like this, Laura, and I got it, because Jessica's like 5 feet behind you. Anybody else that I'm missing? I mean, we have our panel. But anybody else is in the room that's elected or running? Sylvia Glass over there. Thank you. Also running. Holly will recognize our panel, but I want to make sure if anybody else, activists and leaders, you're on the panel though. It's okay. Can I get a witness? All right. Also, leaders of organizations. We have Joanne Collins, Heidi Zolo, Bernice Laresh, Leslie Emery. I like to make sure we always recognize activists who are leading. Jeannie Clary, Jeannie in the back. There she is with the glasses on. And all of you, I know I'm missing everybody. Julie Gallo's here. I'm just so excited to see everybody. And we have some young dams back there. Amanda, welcome. We have Matt Savage here. Welcome. All right, I'm going to hand it over. We have another. I love pointing. Oh, of course, I haven't seen you yet. Hello, you'll be on the program tomorrow. Elizabeth Brubaker. Awesome. All right, I'm going to hand it over, but I want to make everybody feel welcome. Oh, pointing. Who are you pointing at?
Rural ground game.
Why, I already said hi there, Jenny Kitchen.
Green a deal.
I can't see. Karen Champlin! Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Holly because she's the awesomest, and let's go.
Thank you so much, Karen. So the first thing that we should do is give a round of applause for Network Nova that has been doing this for 7 years. Even on a day like today, when we're all feeling a little down, Catherine gets up and talks to us, and there's something about her enthusiasm that's infectious and makes us want to get out and fight whatever fight we've got to fight today. So I thank you all so much for coming. The first thing I want to do is suggest, if you'd like to, that the folks who are standing over there, we're going to be talking for about a half hour, right? Catherine, about a half hour. And if folks would like to come in, there's space in here. You can pretend you're in kindergarten, sit on the floor. There's space upstairs, and you're going to be a lot more comfortable, I think, than just standing out there. As Catherine mentioned, I'm Holly Heizer. I'm one of the co-founders for Public Education. Cheryl Binkley is up in the balcony. She's another co-founder. I'm not sure that there are other founders or members here, but Sarah actually is also a member of For Public Education. You're waving for that reason, sir? Anyway, we are a grassroots organization that was founded to fight for public education, and I will tell you, never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would have to form a group to fight for public education in America. This is a shock. I know that today we're sitting here with our mind in a fog, thinking, how can we think about anything else except a woman's right to abortion, a person's right to abortion? But I will tell you that from where I'm coming from, all these issues are linked. And as Clarence Thomas so horribly pointed out today, they're going after everything. And, he mentioned contraception. He mentioned gay marriage. He didn't mention public education, but that's probably just because he didn't think of it in the moment. But they are out to take down the institutions that make our democracy work. And so tonight we've got an amazing panel, and I would ask them to come up. I think that these stools are for all of you to come up and so that we can use them. Pardon me? Yes, Lorita. There are men. There's 6 of these, I hope. Anyway, if you would all just come up so that we've got a panel going here, that's great. It'll be easier to pass the mic. We've got here, I know Juli Briskman. If you would all come up, Altoona. I'm sorry, Atoosa. I'm so sorry. I'm from Pennsylvania, that's why I said that. Atoosa. Rachna, Buta, Jessica. That's the panel. I'm great. How are you doing? So what we're going to do, because I don't want to take a lot of time introducing folks when they've got their own message and their own focus. And I don't think we've got enough. We're going to have to share. We've got a chair. I think so the tallest one has the stool. That will work. So what I'm going to do first is allow these wonderful women to introduce themselves and give about a 3-minute presentation, and then I'm going to ask a few questions, and then the most important part of this is I hope you'll think of the questions that you've got for them, because I will tell you, my guess is for the folks who are school board members, when they signed up for this, they did not think the job was going to be what the job ended up being. And for any of you who have been at a school board meeting recently, and if you haven't, get a box of popcorn and go, because it's a show like you're never going to see. It is screaming, it is antagonistic, it's hostile, it's brutal, death threats, attacks on people's characters, their way of life, nothing that has anything to do with education. It's an appalling display, and it's an embarrassment that it's happening here in America. And what we need to do is to figure out how we can pull back from this and make sure that we're protecting public education. Because I'll tell you, these other issues that we're talking about aren't going to matter if we have an uneducated electorate. The other side's going to win for sure if they take our schools and turn them into little factories for people who think exactly like they think. So with that, I'm going to start with Jessica. Jessica, and if you all could keep, before this, I just want one thing. I wanted to say something about Rachna. And the reason that I got involved for public education, it got started, is that Rachna and I are Facebook friends. And I was reading, and Carl actually to some extent as well, I was reading these horrible experiences that they were having week after week. And by the way, for some reason they don't have school board meetings once a month, they have them twice a month. I don't know what that's about, so twice a month I was reading these horrible experiences that she was having, and I texted her and said, what can I do? And she said, just show up. If we could just have people just show up, so it's not always just the crazies, that would be so helpful. And so that's what we started doing. Anyway, with that I'm going to turn it over to Jessica.
Hi everyone, I am Jessica Berg. I am a high school English and Women and Gender Studies teacher in Loudoun County, Virginia. Yeah, so if you know anything about public education, it's been a lot this year. And I was trying to think of what to say tonight because there's so much. Practically every culture war that was going on in America, it was happening in the classroom as well. And so I wanted to start with, I got the chance this past April to testify at a congressional hearing about banned books, banned books, censorship, and academic freedom. But like Holly, it was a little surreal because on one hand I was like, wow, this is such an awesome honor to get to speak on behalf of teachers and something I'm passionate about, books. But also it was like, it's 2022 and I have to speak up for books in front of Congress. And so while I was there, a parent was also speaking on behalf of her transgender daughter. And she spoke, while she was speaking, she introduced herself and she gave her pronouns. And I am watching Ranking Chairwoman Nancy Mace from South Carolina, and she rolled her eyes. Yeah. Then after I spoke, Ruby Bridges spoke. And she had to defend her own life story in a book from being banned, because that's what's happening right now in America. And the thing is, this is really nothing new for public education. In its infancy in 1925, we had the first culture war taking place in the now infamous Scopes monkey trial. And it has always been the forefront. The classroom is almost a microcosm for what is going on in the greater American society. And like Holly said, the thing is, we have to protect it, we have to save it, we have to speak up. Teachers are leaving en masse because what's going on right now, it is not tenable. We are hanging on by a thread. And part of it is we know, us in this room, what we believe in, equality, inclusivity, and equity in education. We know we're the majority. We have to start acting like it. Yes, please. And the last thing I will say, because I also feel in speaking on behalf of teachers, because it's hard to be vocal because of the backlash from these parent groups, that I also like to speak for my students in the classroom. And the one thing, and I tell them this all the time, and I tell anyone who's not a teacher this all the time, they are the thing that gives me so much hope. Because let me tell you this, all this rhetoric about, no CRT and banning all these books, this is the generation that has grown up seeing the murder of Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown and Philando Castile and George Floyd. They have grown up practicing active shooter drills since elementary school, and they woke up this morning seeing this news, and I had so many emails and texts from students. Like, we can't undo this. So they are ready. We have to keep fighting for them as well. So thank you.
Next is Juli Briskman, who is from the Loudoun County. Yeah, I know that. We're switching it up here. We're women. We can do this.
Thank you so much. My name is Juli Briskman. I was elected to the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors in 2019. Yeah. Thank you. When we flipped Loudoun blue, And I was actually elected with Atoosa, Reaser, and Buta, Biberaj, so very proud about that. So I have been thinking about how to message on this, and because part of the problem is this fight over education is trying to be, they're trying to tie it to everybody, right? They think that if they can take down our school board members, they can tie it and take down everybody. And I keep coming back to the majority of Americans, the vast majority of Americans believe in public education. They believe public education should be equitably funded, it should be fully funded, and we should actually increase funding so that every child, no matter their zip code, no matter the color of their skin, no matter how they identify, gets a quality education. And not only that, that they get an education that not only talks about the achievements in our nation, but also talks about the problems that we have had in our nation and the scars that we have created through institutional racism and all the inequities, sexism as well. Yeah. So, and I've been reading up on this organization called Freedom to Learn, and it's really good, and I highly recommend, if you haven't visited with them, that you should. And the idea is, we know the vast majority of Americans believe this. We need to adjust our messaging so that we are not repeating what they say, but we are in fact talking about our shared values and how coming together we can influence with our shared values. Because every time we repeat their anti-CRT or all these things, it in many ways kind of reinforces those thoughts. So it can't be that it's parents against our educators. It can't be that it's parents against our administrators. It has to be that certain politicians want to erase history so that they can control the narrative. They want to erase certain people, so like Ruby Bridges and Martin Luther King, and probably even Ruth Bader Ginsburg at this point, because they pissed all over her grave today. Sorry, I'm just like so angry. But they want to do that so they can control the political narrative. And we can't let that happen. We have to take back the political narrative so that the conversation is a child's freedom to learn versus the politicians who want to end that. So that's what I got.
And next is Atoosa Reaser, who I have to say, if there is a job more difficult than being on the Fairfax County School Board, it may be being on the Fairfax County School Board. So we applaud you for all the work that you do.
I'm gonna grab this really quick and talk to you for just a second about Atoosa, because I know that she's not going to talk about this. Atoosa stood up with Brenda Sheridan and fought this BS, although she was getting racially motivated death threats. And we have somebody who quit our school board and sits on the sidelines and criticizes after she quit. Okay? Atoosa is one of the most bravest women that I have ever met in my life. And I cannot be more proud that she is my Algonquian district counterpart on the school board. And I know that she wouldn't say that about herself, so I had to say that.
Well, thank you, Julie. I think I could just pass the mic on now. So I'm Atoosa Reaser. I'm on the Loudoun County School Board. You may have heard of us. Yeah. So thank you all for having us. And there are a lot of people in the audience who worked really hard to elect the three of us from Loudoun and the other electeds in the room from Fairfax. We didn't do this alone. We are just filling a role in what we all did together. So I want to just acknowledge that Julie was saying that and build on that for a second, because I think it's really important that we keep doing this together, like Julie was saying. I think we have a shared belief that public education is a pillar of democracy. It is the way that everyone reaches their full potential. You can do anything with an education. I mean, that's the reason my parents brought me to this country. I was an English language learner. We were 8 years old, and they came here because the right of a woman to have an education became endangered and questionable in the country that we lived in. So for me, it was really natural, the intersection of youth and government, to try to work to make sure that all of the people in Loudoun who have children in schools were getting the same opportunity regardless of which school their kid went to or who their teacher was. And that's what I joined the school board to do. And COVID happened, and that the difficulty that families were having was something that was capitalized upon, because everybody doesn't believe that public education. They believe in education, but not public education. And I think the important word here is public. When we're all in for public education, it means that everyone's getting a fair shot. So the people who want to attack us as school board members, they really want to take down public education. And our children deserve to have equal opportunities, not just the kids whose parents can pay for the programming that they want their kids to have. So I think as we come together and we talk about that, we have to remember that despite what happened, despite the challenges of the pandemic and the other challenges that were somewhat manufactured, our school divisions still did amazing things. We learned that schools are about community. They're not just about teaching the things that kids need to learn, like math and reading and writing, but they're about food and transportation and childcare. And so my ask to you today is going to be to remember the people who are taking care of the kids all day, every day, and take care of the teachers, support the educators. If you have a moment, give them just some words of gratitude.
Our next speaker, I actually met about 3 weeks ago. I picked up the phone, and she was on the phone. She's in Spotsylvania County, and so we need to remember that. And she came a long way to come here. We need to remember these things are not just going on here in our little bubble of Northern Virginia. That these attacks on public education are taking place throughout Virginia and throughout the country. And as hard as it is to be an elected official here in Northern Virginia, imagine being an elected official, staking out that space and that turf in a place where it's not really all blue, and that people are listening a lot more to Fox News than they are to CNN, and standing up and making sure that children are being protected. And so I'm honored to meet you in person and to say hi to Rita Daniels.
I will just say thank you so much for that. I'm excited to be here, and I'm sure most, I don't know if I'm too close to but I'm excited to be here amongst awesome women. I will just say, I'm going to tell you this. I do have a 9-year-old, so I had to write myself some notes because my brain capacity is extended.
Oh, me too.
Okay, I'll just stand here then so I get the... Okay, so I wrote myself some notes just to make sure that I covered everything that I wanted to cover. But again, I'm Dr. Lorita Daniels from Spotsylvania County. I sit on the school board. I have to say this disclaimer because if you've been watching our meetings for the past 2 years, oh my goodness, what I say today are my views only. They have nothing to do with Spotsylvania County School Board. It does not represent Spotsylvania County School Board. So I had to put that out there. And I also have to kind of just remember the purpose here today. My purpose today is just continue to fight for our kids, make sure that they're getting the education that they need, and make sure the education is inclusive of everyone. The system is inclusive of everyone. I did get elected in 2019, but of course I started right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I've been on an emotional roller coaster since I've been on the school board, dealing with chaos, uncertainty, all throughout the pandemic. And I'm like, where's the normalcy? I don't see it anywhere in sight. Even now, we're kind of past the pandemic. I still don't see it anywhere in sight. But I've witnessed accountability, transparency get thrown out of government. That is so sad to me. It is not fair to American people. And it's definitely not fair to our children who depend on our education system to prepare them to sit in this democracy. That is so sad. But we must not let whatever's going on in the world today, dismantle our education system. We must not allow distractions to continue. We must continue to fight for our children. We must center our conversations around students. Sometimes we get that on the school board. We are talking about everything else under the sun except for centering our conversations. The other thing I want to talk about is making sure that our policy conversations are student-centered and focused. Many times, when we're thinking about policies, we're making decisions for our children without bringing them to the table. That is so important to me. How can we solve their problems or issues without having them at the table? So I implore you, continue to ensure that our children are at the center, because we must keep these conversations student-focused and student-centered. And I'm going to say one last thing in closing. I want to continue to thank our teachers and staff for all the hard work that they do on our school, in our school system, in our public school system, because it's difficult to see all the chaos on these school boards. So I just want to say thank you if we have any teachers or administrators and staff out there. Thank you.
I've known probably longer than anyone else here, and who's just a fantastic advocate, well, for anything that she gets involved in. Thank you,
guys, everybody. First, I want to, if I may, invite my two colleagues who are here to come stand up here with us. I know, but I just want to make sure this is not a meeting. This is us thing. So, Carl Chris and Laura Jane Cohen, who is the Springfield representative province, is here. Invite them to come up with me, so I hope you don't mind. Not real crime. Let's be clear. If there's anybody in the room who's recording us, no real crime going on. Thank you for having me. First, I want to say thank you to all of you who worked hard. You elected us to take care of our kids. You elected us to take care of our teachers who take care of our kids. And you elected us to safeguard your future. Because at the end of the day, 90% of our students are educated in public schools. Those are our next public servants, our business owners, our public safety officers, our employers, our employees, our citizens, right, who vote and make decisions and run our world. It is we who educate our future. That is why public school is so important. Right? Democracy depends on us being able to educate, and let me tell you, these two are awesome, just put that out there, right? On us being able to educate our students on what it means to have a world that's inclusive, what it means to have a world that's supportive, where everybody can show up as their authentic selves and are welcome, what it means to be able to critically think and analyze, so when you see something in the news, you understand, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Let me think through this, right? You have the critical thinking skills to say, hey, if I can't be forced to give blood to save somebody's life, why do I have to be forced to make another medical decision that is not my own? Right. You have the critical thinking skills to say, history is how we learn, not what we ignore. Yes. That's what we need. That's what public schools are. We are educating folks to protect our democracy. The end of the day, everything starts, the doctors, the lawyers, I'm sorry, right? I know, right? This was right? The teachers, the people who protect those who need protecting, the people who take care of those who need care, the people who make sure that this world has a place for everybody. Those are the kids in public school. Laura Jane sent me a quote today that I want to end my reading to you, and I want to answer one other question. The quote is, give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted. A school board term is 4 years, folks. A school board term is 4 years, and if you lose the school board, the seed that will be sown will not be uprooted, and trust me, that is their goal. Yes. It is to destroy, to defund, and to take away the good learning and plant the bad. Don't let that happen. And I've had people, Holly reached out to me and said, what can I do to help, which I will forever be grateful for. And what I want to say to you all, what you can do to help is to come. We meet in Fairfax every other Thursday, twice a week on Thursday nights. We have a bunch of crazy people, honestly, right? A bunch of really, and I will talk to anybody, but these are crazy folks, right? And they're taking our slogans. They have a whole bunch of signs at our last meeting that says, educate every child. And I'm like, do you understand what you just written? Because that's what you don't want. So come. I have a good friend of mine who comes, and she brings her knitting. And she brings her friend who brings her knitting. And they plop themselves in the middle of the crazies. Because the crazies sit strategically, so when they film themselves and film us, it looks like they're the only ones in the room. So the clips on Fox News looks like those are the majority. So she sits there in the middle of them and knits. Because her belief is, when they put it on Fox News and there's two middle-aged knitting women, it doesn't look so crazy. So come and knit at our school board meetings. Right. Come and support us.
We all get a little crafts in while we're being around with badass women. So, finally, we have Buta, Biberaj, who is the Commonwealth attorney for Loudoun County, and we're so thrilled to have her here as well.
I'm Buta Biberaj, and I am Loudoun County's Commonwealth attorney, and I don't care what the hell those bugs think that they're trying to do, because that ain't going to happen. As far as we call it. So we're going to have this conversation for the starters. I am honored to be part of this panel for one thing. I actually was a teacher in the first part of my career. I taught for 3 years in Fairfax County. And it was an amazing experience, and I knew if I didn't at that point change to pursue my interest in the law, that I would remain a teacher because it was such an honor to teach our kids. At the end of the day, everything we do is for the kids. We cannot let anybody steal that narrative from us. What we are always forced is in a position where somebody's going to try and make it a binary decision. It's either this or that. Nothing in life is binary. It's fluid. That's okay. So Juli was talking about the fact that here what we have is a situation where they're trying to just dismantle some of the pillars of our government, pillars of our society. This really is a fight for our democracy. When we start looking at these recall petitions, let me ask you this question. How many times have you sat with somebody and you said, you need to vote? And they're like, why should I vote? It doesn't count. No, you need to vote because it will count. In Northern Virginia, we're very fortunate. Right? For me to vote, I literally go maybe 1,000 feet from my house. I vote. It takes me 10 minutes. Somebody doesn't have that luxury because guess what? They have to get in a car and drive. They may not have a car. They may not be able to drive 50 miles or 50 minutes to be able to do that, but they do it. When they get to the polling stations, do you have your ID? Well, I might have an ID, might have not. Out here in Northern Virginia, we drive, we have IDs. Rural America, what the hell do they need an ID for? They're not driving. So it becomes these challenges and these restrictions as to how they get to the polls, how do they get to vote. That is, once you vote, it's like, well, I don't know if it's really you, because aren't you dead? Because somewhere on my roll that shows that you're dead. And you're like, no, I think I'm okay. I woke up on the right side of the soil this morning. I stood up and I was awake. Then what happens is, I don't know if we're going to certify the votes. Right? This is what we saw just within the 2020 election. Well, I don't know if we're going to certify it. What do you mean you're not going to certify it? Like, when did that become our reality? Fine, they can't fight it, they have to certify it. Then it becomes a situation where we have January 6th. Please do not lose sight of what January 6th really is. That is the closest thing that our country has come to it being dismantled by force. Okay, this idea that it was a protest, I'm sorry, bullshit. On a very basic level. It is not a protest. When you go into a government building and it's not to be a tourist and take pictures, but you're going in there with arms and you're trying to find people to either you're going to hang, or you're going to take care of, or you're going to get rid of. Zip tie, right? Those are crimes. Even then, they did not succeed. So now what do we have? We have recalls. If they are successful to take somebody's position from a recall for not anything that is malfeasance or misfeasance, but because they don't believe in their policy, that is what they're doing, is they would be undoing an election. How do we ever then, with a straight face, tell somebody you need to vote? What the hell am I going to vote for? Because it doesn't count. And you have to say, wow, you're right. We cannot let anyone take down our democracy. We're seeing with the government right now, as far as during Trump's eras and all those followers thereafter, we take down and we call into question our school system. When have we ever hated teachers? I remember growing up in New York City. My parents are immigrants. I could get in trouble almost anywhere and not die. But if I got in trouble in school, it was a death sentence. That was their thing. Because those teachers are giving you an opportunity. Immigrant parents understand that. In their countries, they don't have the luxury and the ability to have free public education that's quality. Don't trust the government. Don't trust law enforcement. Don't trust, all of these pillars of our society, because what they're doing is they're calling into question whether or not we are going to be a nation. We are in the fight for our democracy. The other thing that we're seeing them do is they're dividing our interests, because if I attack you, you're busy fighting for yourself. I attack you, you're busy fighting for yourself. I attack you. And then what happens is a divide and conquer. Just like we have everybody here, we are here together. Stand together, stand strong, defend one another, because this is our country. We don't let anybody take our country. Thank you.
We just got an amazing panel here and an amazing audience. I also should be part of the panel. Before we go any further, I do want to recognize one person. I'm probably going to miss somebody, but Pat Hines, if you would stand up. Pat Hines is a teacher. So how many teachers are there here? We have any teachers? So let's have a round of applause for our teachers here. They do a phenomenal job. As Buta said, they are under attack every day, and they're under attack now for doing their job, for teaching history, for being sensitive to kids and wanting to find kids where they are and talk to them about the people that they believe they are and the people they believe they want to become. And they are under attack and afraid for their jobs and afraid for their careers if they do the things that they were trained to do. So they're doing a hard job every day. Pat has formed a group, a sister group for public education called Stand and Deliver. And so if anyone is a teacher and knows teachers who want to join here to support teachers, you can do that. So,
5 of these ladies are from Loudoun County, and that's what we got for representation.
all right, Loudoun is the best. For nieces in the room, you've got to just say Loudoun is the best. Let's just do it on for here.
Fairfax is there and Spotsylvania.
So my horrible charge is that with this fantastic panel, we're a lot of badass, fierce, courageous women. I've got a few questions that I am supposed to ask them, but what I would suggest we do is I've got 2 questions I was going to ask. I'm going to tell them what they are in advance, and we're going to go down really quickly, and in 1 or 2 sentences they can choose which one to answer, and then what I'd like to do is to open this up for about 10 minutes to you all to ask questions, and then we will go back to drinking and partying and having an informal meeting.
Make sure everybody answers with 30-second breath.
30-second breath. I know you can do that. So you can choose. Here are the 2 questions. 2 answers. Is number 1. What's the most surprising challenge you've dealt with and or overcome in your position? That's option number 1. This is like a SAT test, right? And if these amazing, badass activists could do one thing to support public education, what would it be? So you can choose. I'm going to start at the end. We're just going to run through. 30 seconds. Catherine's going to time us.
A breath out.
Like I said, having to defend books and facts and knowledge and education and student voice. You all said it. And just, again, showing up for us. Please, please, please. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The one thing I would say that advocacy's badass people in this room can do for us is change the narrative. Instead of answering to their narrative, change it to our narrative. And keep changing it. And proactively don't shy away from talking about schools. Tell them what's happening, what the stakes are, and change the narrative.
I love it. Change the narrative.
Continue to use your voice. At the end of the day, understand who they are. Bullies. Until we push back, they don't understand that we have the power. So keep fighting, because you're not fighting alone.
So I'm going to take the first question, which nobody's taken yet. The biggest surprise, biggest challenge was the pandemic, but it became an opportunity for teamwork, which is kind of the second answer. I had the opportunity to talk with her and him and Rachna and Buta and Juli, and regional leaders all across Northern Virginia to figure out all those things that I talked about that schools do. So if we keep being a team and giving these messages, and we can fight the divide they're trying to create over race and gender.
Yeah. So one of the things in this context that has surprised me the most is how successful they have been at scaring people. And I'm talking politicians at fairly high levels who are dialing back a little bit, not stepping into the challenge that has been presented to us. That has been so surprising to me. So what we do is we have to help them change the message. And the message is certain politicians want to change the narrative so that they can decide who counts and who doesn't count. And they're pitting us against our educators and our administrators.
One breath.
The message has to be, the message has to be our child's freedom to learn versus certain politicians who want to decide who counts.
One of the most challenging things that came to me as I was elected on the school board was that I thought people had a real reason to run for office.
Yes.
For the kids. That's what I thought. Oh, everybody's on the school board, they're for the kids. Well, I realized that that's not true. There's a political agenda attached to that. So that is one of the things that was really challenging to me, to try to break through and understand, like, how could they do that? Why? But, of course, we're in this time right now where everything's been challenged and people are just, there's a political agenda. That's all I can say. There is a political agenda out there, and unfortunately, it's not good for America and our children. Thank you. Thank you.
Two questions, or we just want to make
Well,
what do you think? What's the
so I
sense of the
have a
room?
few announcements, but
But we still hear announcements.
what I mean is that yes, I think the crowd really loves to hear from teachers, but we do have a few announcements when you're ready.
All right, let's say two. We'll do two questions, and then
Go
of
ahead.
course everyone will be here
Oh
afterwards.
wait, do you? Okay.
You can't ask the questions, Steve.
I'll talk to you offline.
Hold on.
The Democratic Party of Virginia Women's Caucus a few weeks ago had Dr. Nancy McLean out of Duke University talk about the hostile takeover of public education across the country. It was a virtual meeting. Democracy in Chains is her book. It's very helpful. She's been studying it for 40 years. So when Rita, I'm Spotsylvania County, I just retired 40 years. 40 years. And it's been a template and all that. So to show up at a meeting, these meetings go to Spotsy till 2 and 3 in the morning. It's exhausting. They know what they're doing to wear the teachers out. So I haven't been showing. I showed up once. Yeah, rang my school bell to elect Raymond Bell, a supporter, as to this Board of Supervisors. Anyway, but so I would say, what are some other ideas, like letters to the editor and all that? I know bodies count, the optics count, but anybody, some actual
Do what you can, right? So what is your space? Facebook? Facebook all day long. Twitter? Twitter all day long. Letters to the editor? In a coffee shop, or you talking to your neighbor? It really is. Wherever your space is, you keep that message going forward, because then somebody hears it and they don't think that they are the only voice.
I have two suggestions, and one's going to, and this is an honest suggestion. Money. Like the right, the other side has been organizing, and there are deep pocket groups, nationwide groups that are funding candidates on the other side, and school board members especially do not have a developer to call. We don't have those sources for funding. So honestly, money, right? The other thing is, if you can't come to the meeting and totally get it, talk to your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors, right? Invite people over and talk to them about the schools, and change the narrative that way. But money, really, honestly.
Money talks.
Yeah. So I commit August 1 till election every year now that I will spend 2 to 4 hours every single weekend either knocking doors, doing a fundraiser, phone banking, all of that. And like you said, whatever you're most comfortable with, go do it, commit to every weekend 2 to 4 hours. It's not horrible, and if you do it every weekend, you cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, but so one of the things I want to say is we get so many negative publicity in Spotsylvania. I would just ask that if you have a story, a positive story of something that's positive that's happened in your school system, tell us about it at the meeting to drown out everything else. That is important. We need to hear positive stories.
This is, yeah, we're going to have one more question. And you're it, Susan, is that unlike the other issues that we're dealing with, abortion, whatever, all the other issues, people really don't know about this issue yet. And as Rachna said, there is a huge amount of dark money on the other side, and they are sowing the seeds to bubble up here to do something really, really bad to us. So, of course, we want to talk to our neighbors about all these issues, but my neighbors, for one, are a little sick of hearing about the abortion issue and animal issues and all the other issues. But they don't understand about the education issue, and they actually are kind of interested when I start talking about that. So that's an easy thing that you can do. Susan. Last question.
Okay. So, what are we doing about civics education? I really feel like we have a huge opportunity there, and we can support those teachers. There's a Civics Educators Association. I don't know if they're good or bad, but what can we do to support those specific educators to get kids fired up about our Constitution and know their right to vote? It shouldn't even be partisan. It should just be yay democracy.
It's illegal. It's too controversial.
Who wants to start?
Let's listen from a teacher. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So I remember a few years ago at a faculty meeting, they told us all, this was right at the beginning of the Trump administration, that we had to be apolitical in the classroom. With what's going on, what does that mean? What is not political these days? So I have even found, being just an English and a women and gender studies teacher, that it naturally works itself in. But we, like everyone's been saying, we have to support these educators because given the state of things, teachers are afraid to cross that line because of the backlash we face from parents, from parent groups. There are teachers, one teacher from Independence in Loudoun County, she left mid-year because she was just being constantly berated. So like everyone said, just being vocal, talking about what our teachers do that are good, that supports us and gives us the reassurance that yes, we can have these conversations because we know they're the conversations that need to be had. And these are the questions students are asking.
Civics education courses, right?
Yes. But again, when they tell us to be apolitical,
Yeah, it's everything.
And I'm just going to add that we study fascism. It doesn't mean we're indoctrinating kids to be fascist. You can study racism without indoctrinating kids to be racist. We have to reframe. Just because they say it one way, don't believe even the way they're framing the question. There are so many supporters of our values who will come up and ask a question exactly the way they framed it. So don't take it at face value and just believe what's being said.
That's good. Thank you.
No, don't be sorry. You have a great answer. I just wanted to, Susan, just to answer your question directly. In Fairfax County, right, every 8th grader takes civics. Okay, every 12th grader takes the U.S. government. Right, and it's infused in both. It's infused in a lot of other lessons, in history lessons, in social studies, and I think 5th grade where you study U.S. history. It's infused in all of that. A lot of our teachers do project-based learning, and some of the and I've been involved in this. For example, one of the schools has lobby day, where the kids research an issue they care about, and make a presentation or whatever you want to say it is, invite the right level of elected official, and they lobby them. That's civics education,
yes.
Right? So there's many of those things going on in the school right now. What the key is to protect those in a way that is authentic to what's actually happening in the world, in a way that our teachers can have the conversations
that fosters that critical thinking is at the school board level, passing policies that protect teachers to be able to do those lessons in an authentic way, and for the community to talk about why it's important to teach our kids the critical thinking skills and to learn, as Atoosa said very, very, very wisely, to teach about fascism, to teach about racism, to teach about, and I'll just share my own personal story, right? I came from a culture that you don't get involved in politics. You don't get involved, it's just not a culture that supported it. I know, right? Oops. And I was in 5th grade, and my teacher did a Save the Whales project in 5th grade, and I remember thinking, what? I can save a whale? Like, that's really cool, right? Like, when I say public education opens the doors to students to teach them how to be citizens, I am one of them. So what we need to do is allow our teachers to do what they've already been doing in a way that we on the board protect them, in a way that you as the public talk about these things that they're doing, and that is what allows them to do it.
Yes.
Thank you, Rachna. And I decided I made a big mistake by not letting the grand dame of never not ask you questions, so it better be a good one. And then we'll just have one answer, and then we'll move on.
What's the 5-word message?
5 words. One person can get a 5-word message.
Eat your eye.
Public education is for everyone.
Olem,
All the way to West Virginia.
Big finale.
but now Norton.
I've learned a lot from listening to all of you, and here's just one thing that I'd like everyone to think about. We have to start thinking differently about how we educate our kids, and it doesn't always have to happen in the classroom. And just remember that everyone in here has kids of their own. They have nieces and nephews and cousins. They have friends who have kids and nieces and nephews and cousins. And so we start educating them ourselves about the things that we think are important. And we can do that just as effectively as we can, probably petitioning the school board to do some of the education that we probably can figure out how to do ourselves.
And with that, I'd like to give a round of applause to everyone and have Carl and Lord Jay talk as well. Anyway, thank you all so much.
So stay in place, and I'm going to say that you exceeded just expectation tonight. I'm so proud. I look at Jessica, a teacher. I was listening on the radio, and you were in front of Congress testifying. And when I heard you were almost ready to quit, I'm thinking this is really important what we're doing. We need to protect teachers. So let's give a round of applause for all of this.